I paid for my golden child sister's education, while working two jobs only to have her call me the dumbest loser ever at a family dinner. She was shocked when I stopped paying her rent and told everyone why she could no longer afford her lifestyle. Hey Reddit, I never thought I would be writing this out for strangers to read, but honestly, I don't have anyone else who would understand the sheer magnitude of what just happened. I'm sitting in my truck right now, parked down the street from the house I grew up in, watching the lights go out one by one. For the first time in my life, I don't feel the crushing weight of obligation. I feel free. But getting here? It was a nightmare that lasted 26 years. I, 26 male, have always been the background character in the movie of my family's life. The star of the show has always been my younger sister, Bella, 22 female. From the moment she was born, it was like the sun rose and set on her command. My parents, let's call them Robert and Linda, decided early on that Bella was destined for greatness, while I was destined to be the sturdy furniture that held everyone else up. To understand why I did what I did, you have to understand the dynamic of my childhood. It wasn't just favoritism, it was a complete distortion of reality. If Bella got a C on a test, it wasn't because she didn't study, it was because the teacher was stifling her creativity. And my parents would storm the school to demand a grade change. If I got a B, I was asked why I wasn't applying myself like the neighbor's kid. If Bella wanted a new toy, she got it because she's just so creative. She needs it for her development. If I needed new soccer cleats because mine had holes, I was told money was tight and I needed to learn the value of taking care of my things. I remember one specific incident when I was 12 and she was 8. I had spent 3 months mowing lawns in the neighborhood to save up for a specific video game console. I kept the money in a jar on my dresser. One day, I came home to find the jar empty. When I asked my parents, my mom told me that Bella had borrowed it to buy a limited edition doll set she saw online. When I got upset, I was grounded for being selfish and materialistic. They promised they would pay me back. They never did. That was the first lesson I learned. My hard work was community property. Bella's desires were immediate necessities. By the time we hit our teenage years, the gap had widened into a canyon. I started working legally at 14, bagging groceries, cleaning gutters, doing whatever manual labor I could find to buy my own clothes and save for a car. Bella was enrolled in dance classes, art camps, and vocal lessons, none of which she stuck with for more than 6 months. She was finding herself. I was finding calluses on my hands. When I turned 16, I bought a beat-up sedan with my own money. It had 150,000 miles on it, and the air conditioning didn't work, but it was mine. When Bella turned 16, my parents leased her a brand new compact SUV because safety is a priority, and they didn't want her driving a death trap like mine. I paid for my own gas and insurance. Bella's gas card was linked to my dad's bank account. When I graduated high school, my parents sat me down for the talk. They told me that college was expensive, and they hadn't saved enough for both of us. Since I was so good with my hands and hardworking, they expected me to go straight into the workforce or trade school, which I would have to pay for myself. They needed to save their resources for Bella because she had academic potential. I didn't argue. I was used to it. In a way, I was proud of it. I got a certification in HVAC and started working immediately. I moved into a tiny studio apartment that smelled like mildew and old soup, drove my beat-up car that rattled when it went over 40, and worked 60-hour weeks. I built a life that was small, but it was mine. Or so I thought. Then came the real kicker. 4 years ago, Bella got accepted into a private liberal arts college in the city. It was expensive. Astronomical, really. My parents, who had refinanced their house twice to pay for her necessities in high school, didn't have the cash. They called a family meeting. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, still wearing my work uniform covered in dust and grease. My mom made me put a towel down on the chair so I wouldn't dirty the upholstery. The air in the room was thick, like right before a thunderstorm. Caleb, my dad started, using his serious voice, the one he used when he was trying to sell a bad idea as a good one. We have a situation. Bella has this incredible opportunity. It's her dream school. But the tuition and the living expenses in the city, it's more than we can handle alone. I nodded, taking a sip of water. Okay, so she's going to a state school, or getting loans, or working? My mom looked at me like I had suggested we sell Bella to a circus. Student loans? We don't want her starting her life with that kind of debt, Caleb. It's crippling. And state school? Her program isn't as good there. She needs this environment to thrive. And work? She needs to focus on her studies. This is a delicate time for her. Okay, I said slowly, feeling the trap closing in but not seeing the mechanism yet. So what's the plan? We need you to chip in, my dad said. He didn't ask. He stated it. You're making good money now with all that overtime you work. You don't have a family to support. You live simply. We've run the numbers. If you cover Bella's rent and living expenses, we can manage the tuition payments. I stared at them. The silence stretched out, filled only by the hum of the refrigerator. You want me to pay for her apartment? In the city? That market is insane. It's an investment in the family, Bella chimed in. She was sitting there scrolling on her phone, barely paying attention to the conversation that was deciding my financial future. When I make it big, I'll buy you a new truck or something. We're a team, my mom added, reaching across the table to pat my hand, carefully avoiding the grease stains. You're the big brother. It's your job to look out for her. Imagine how proud we'll all be when she graduates. And really, Caleb, what else are you spending your money on? You just work and sleep. You have plenty of disposable income. The guilt trip was immense. They talked about sacrifice, about family duty, about how I had always been the strong one. They brought up every time they had fed me or housed me as a child, as if it were a debt I now had to repay. They wore me down. I agreed. I agreed to pay $2,500 a month for her rent and give her a monthly allowance for groceries and bills. For the last 4 years, I have worked 2 jobs to maintain this promise. By day, I work full-time HVAC, crawling into scorching attics in the summer where the temperature hits 130 degrees, and freezing crawl spaces in the winter where the dampness settles into your bones. By night and on weekends, I work at a logistics warehouse, loading heavy boxes onto trucks until my back feels like it's going to snap. I wake up at 5 a.m., I get home at 11 p.m. I eat sandwiches from gas stations because I don't have time to cook. I haven't taken a vacation in 5 years. My social life consists of waving to my neighbors as I leave before dawn. I missed my best friend's wedding because I couldn't afford to take the weekend off without missing a payment for Bella. I do this so Bella can live in a luxury apartment with a doorman, stainless steel appliances, a gym I've never seen, and a view of the skyline. I do this so she can study communications and post pictures of her expensive lunches on social media. Every time I visited her, which was rare because I was always working, she would complain. The apartment was too small. The doorman was rude. The internet was too slow. She never asked how I was. She never asked why I looked like a zombie from exhaustion. She never asked why I was wearing work boots with duct tape on them. She just held out her hand for the next check. My parents were no better. They visited her constantly, taking her shopping for clothes she needed for internships she never got. They'd post photos of their outings with captions like, "So proud of our girl working so hard." Meanwhile, I was literally sweating through my clothes installing ductwork. The cracks started to show about 6 months ago. I was exhausted. I mean, bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. I hurt my back at the warehouse, lifted a crate wrong, and had to take 3 days off unpaid. I was physically unable to get out of bed. I was short on cash for my own rent, my tiny, crummy apartment rent, and I asked Bella if she could maybe skip the allowance that month so I could catch up. Just the allowance, not the rent. Just the spending money. She exploded. She told me I was selfish, that I was trying to sabotage her during midterms. It was October, midterms were over, and that she had already promised to go on a weekend trip with her friends and needed the money for the hotel. My parents called me 10 minutes later, screaming that I had broken my promise and upset my sister. "You have 2 jobs, Caleb," my dad yelled over the phone. "Where is the money going? You need to manage your finances better. Don't punish your sister for your incompetence. Maybe if you didn't buy those energy drinks you like, you'd have enough." I paid her. I ate ramen noodles for 3 weeks and didn't turn on my heat during a cold snap, but I paid her. I laid in the dark, shivering under 3 blankets, nursing my back, and I transferred the money so she could go to a spa weekend. That brings us to last night, the graduation dinner. Bella finally graduated. It took her 5 years because she changed her focus a few times, but she finished. To celebrate, my parents booked a private room at this incredibly expensive steakhouse downtown. I had to work a half shift at the warehouse just to be able to afford the time off for the dinner. I rushed home, showered the grime off as best I could, put on my one decent suit, which is a bit tight in the shoulders now from all the lifting, and drove to the restaurant. I was 10 minutes late because of traffic. When I walked in, they were already seated. The table was filled with appetizers. Calamari, shrimp cocktails, fancy cheeses, sparkling waters with lime. My Aunt Susan and Uncle Mike were there, along with my cousin Jessica. Everyone was laughing. The room smelled of expensive perfume and seared meat. "Look who finally decided to show up," Bella said loudly as I approached the table. She didn't stand up to hug me. She just smirked. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car insurance for the year. We almost ordered your food to go. Sorry, I muttered, taking the empty seat at the end of the table. Traffic was a nightmare coming from the warehouse. There was an accident on the bridge. Always an excuse, my dad said, shaking his head and buttering a roll. Sit down, Caleb. Try not to get any dirt on the tablecloth. This is a nice place. I looked at my hands. They were scrubbed raw, clean as a whistle, but the calluses, scars, and ingrained stains from years of labor make them look rough. I put them in my lap, hiding them under the napkin. The dinner went on, and it was the Bella show. Everyone fawned over her. They praised her for graduating. They asked about her plans. They treated her like she had just returned from a war zone instead of a climate-controlled classroom. I'm going to take a gap year, Bella announced, sipping her sparkling water with her pinky out. I need to decompress. School was so traumatic. I'm thinking of traveling to Europe for a few months, maybe starting a lifestyle blog. I really need to find my center. That sounds wonderful, honey, my mom beamed, clapping her hands together. You deserve a break. You've worked so hard. Europe will be so culturing for you. I choked on my water. I coughed, putting my fist to my mouth. Europe? I asked, my voice rasping. How are you going to pay for that? The table went silent. The clinking of silverware stopped. Bella glared at me, her eyes narrowing. Excuse me? I said, trying to keep my voice steady, feeling the heat rise in my neck. I've been paying your rent and bills for 4 years. Now that you're graduated, the deal was you get a job and take over your own expenses. I can't fund a European vacation. I barely have enough to fix the brakes on my truck. My dad slammed his hand on the table, rattling the glasses. Caleb, this is a celebration. We do not discuss money at the dinner table. It is incredibly tacky. Why do you always have to bring the mood down? It's not tacky to ask how she plans to live, I said, feeling the anger rising in my chest. A hot, solid thing I hadn't let myself feel in years. I'm tired, Dad. I've been working 80-hour weeks for years. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Bella laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound, devoid of any sibling affection. Oh, boo-hoo. Poor Caleb and his manual labor. You act like you're carrying the weight of the world. You act like you're some hero. All you do is lift boxes and turn wrenches. A monkey could do your job. It's not exactly brain surgery. Bella, Aunt Susan said softly, looking uncomfortable. That's not nice. Your brother works hard. It's true, Bella snapped, turning on her. He's just jealous. He's always been jealous of me because I actually have ambition. He's bitter because he's stuck in a dead-end life while I'm going places. He should be grateful he gets to be part of my success. He's lucky I even let him come tonight. Grateful, I whispered. The word tasted like ash. I paid for your apartment. I paid for your food. I paid for your clothes. I paid for the phone you're holding right now. You did the bare minimum, Bella shouted, her face twisting into something ugly. You're the big brother. That's what you're supposed to do. And honestly, you're terrible at it. You're always late with the money. You always complain. You're such a drag. You know what you are, Caleb. You're the dumbest loser ever. You have no life, no girlfriend, no future. You're just a wallet with a pulse, and barely a good one at that. I looked around the table. My parents weren't scolding her. My mom was sipping her drink, looking away, examining her nails. My dad was glaring at me like I had caused a scene, like I was the problem for provoking her. That's enough, my dad said to me. Apologize to your sister for ruining her night. You've upset her. Apologize? I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor, drawing the eyes of the entire restaurant. You want me to apologize after she called me a loser? After I sacrificed my entire early 20s to fund her lifestyle? After I ruined my back for her rent? She's stressed, my mom hissed. She's graduating. It's a big transition. Stop making this about you. Can't you just be the bigger person for once? I looked at Bella. She was smirking again, victorious. She thought she had won. She thought I would sit back down, apologize, and cut the check for Europe. She thought I was broken. You think I'm a loser? I asked quietly. The biggest, she said, popping a grape into her mouth. The dumbest loser ever. Okay, I said. Okay. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. The interface glowed in the dim restaurant light. What are you doing? Bella asked, looking annoyed. Checking your bank balance to see if you can afford dessert? I'm being smart for once, I said, tapping the screen. I'm canceling the recurring transfer for your rent. I'm canceling the transfer for your allowance. And I'm logging into the utility companies right now to remove my card from your accounts. Bella's face dropped. The smirk vanished. You can't do that. Rent is due in 3 days. Not my problem, I said. Losers don't pay rent for people who hate them. Dad! Bella shrieked, her voice rising to a panic. Make him stop! He's stealing my money! My dad stood up, his face red, veins bulging in his neck. Caleb, sit down right now. If you cut her off, you are disowned. Do you hear me? You are out of this family. You will never step foot in our house again. I looked at my dad, the man who taught me to tie my shoes, who I thought I was helping, who had used me as a beast of burden for years. I looked at him and saw a stranger. I think I was out of this family a long time ago, I said. I was just the only one paying the admission fee. I turned to the rest of the table. Aunt Susan looked horrified, her hand over her mouth. Uncle Mike looked stunned, his fork halfway to his mouth. Just so everyone knows, I said loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear, Bella isn't a genius. She isn't independent. I have paid every single cent of her rent, her bills, and her spending money for 4 years. I worked 2 jobs, 80 hours a week to fund her. And tonight, she called me a loser. So, she's on her own. Enjoy the calamari. I threw a $20 bill on the table for my water and walked out. Bella was screaming as I left. My mom was crying theatrically. My dad was shouting threats about lawyers. I didn't look back. I got in my truck and drove away. I turned off my phone because it started blowing up immediately. I drove for an hour, just listening to the hum of the tires and the wind rushing past. I ended up here, near my childhood home, just processing it all. It's been 12 hours. I turned my phone on this morning. 47 missed calls, 112 texts, voicemails from everyone. I haven't listened to them yet. I'm going to go to work today, just one job, because I quit the warehouse shift last night via email. I'm going to go home to my quiet apartment, and I'm going to sleep for 12 hours. I don't know what's going to happen next, but for the first time in years, the money in my bank account is mine, and that feels pretty good. Update 1, the eviction notice and the flying monkeys. It's been 5 days since the dinner. Life has been weirdly quiet on my end, but explosive on theirs. The silence in my apartment is no longer lonely. It's peaceful. First off, quitting the warehouse job was the best feeling in the world. My back doesn't hurt as much when I wake up. I actually had time to cook a real meal last night. Chicken and vegetables, not a gas station burrito. It felt like luxury. I sat there eating on a Tuesday night, not rushing to a second shift, and I almost cried from the sheer normalcy of it. My phone has been a war zone. I eventually had to listen to the voicemails just to make sure no one was dying. Most of them were from my mom, alternating between crying and guilt-tripping. How could you do this? We're a family. Bella is hysterical. You've ruined everything. Please, Caleb, just pay it for 1 more month until we figure this out. There were a few from my dad, mostly threats. You better fix this before I come over there. You're ungrateful. I'm ashamed of you. You are stealing from your sister. And Bella. Oh, Bella. Her texts were a roller coaster of emotions. None of them genuine. You're such a jerk. Put the money back now. I'm sorry, okay? Just pay the rent. I hate you. Please, I have no food. You're dead to me. I didn't respond to a single one. I just blocked their numbers for a few days to get some peace. However, the real fallout started happening yesterday. Since I stopped paying the rent, the payment bounced. Bella's apartment complex doesn't play around. It's a high-end corporate building downtown. If you miss rent, you get a notice immediately. I got an email from the landlord because my name was on the lease as a guarantor. Stupid, I know. I signed it 4 years ago. They notified me that rent was overdue and late fees were applying. I replied immediately explaining that I would not be renewing my guarantee and that they should look to the tenant for payment. I also officially submitted my notice to remove myself from the lease liability effective immediately, paying the lease break fee from my own savings just to be done with it legally. It cost me $2,000, but it was worth every penny to sever that tie. I would have paid double to be free. Bella apparently got the eviction warning taped to her door. That's when the flying monkeys started attacking. My phone started lighting up with numbers I hadn't seen in years. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even some of Bella's friends who I had met maybe once. My Aunt Karen, not Susan, she's actually cool, called me and left a voicemail calling me a monster. You can't just throw your sister on the street. She's a young girl. It's dangerous. What kind of man are you? Family helps family. I realized they were controlling the narrative. They were telling everyone I had simply abandoned her out of spite, leaving out the years of support and the abuse. I decided to make one public statement to clear the air because my parents were spinning a narrative that I had stolen money from Bella, or promised to pay, and then vanished out of cruelty. I went on Facebook. I haven't posted in years, but I typed out a status. To everyone messaging me about Bella, For the last 4 years, I have worked 2 full-time jobs, averaging 80 hours a week, to pay 100% of Bella's rent, bills, and lifestyle expenses in a luxury apartment while I lived in a studio and drove a 15-year-old truck. I did this because I was told it was my duty. At her graduation dinner, instead of thanks, she called me the dumbest loser ever and mocked my job. My parents supported her insults. I simply decided that if I am a loser, I shouldn't be funding her life. She is a college graduate. She can get a job. I am not abandoning her. I am letting her be the independent adult she claims to be. Please do not contact me about this again. The reaction was instant. I think a lot of our extended family had no idea I was paying for everything. My parents had let everyone believe they were the ones funding her, or that Bella had scholarships. Aunt Susan commented almost immediately, "I had no idea, Caleb. You are a good man, and you don't deserve that abuse. Come over for dinner anytime." My cousin Jessica commented, "Wait, you paid for her trip to Cabo last year? She said she won that money in a contest. I can't believe this." The narrative crumbled. My parents were furious. My dad showed up at my apartment complex yesterday evening. I was watching TV, enjoying the silence, when I heard pounding on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw him. He looked disheveled, red-faced, sweating. I didn't open the door. I spoke through it. "Go away, Dad. Open this door, Caleb. We need to talk. You embarrassed us in front of the whole family. You aired our dirty laundry. You aired it when you let your daughter abuse me in public," I shouted back. "Go home. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police for trespassing. You wouldn't dare call the cops on your father. Try me. I have nothing left to lose. You already said I was disowned, remember? Strangers aren't allowed to bang on my door. I have the phone in my hand, Dad." He pounded for another 5 minutes, shouting about how Bella was going to be homeless, and it was on my conscience. He shouted that I owed them, that they raised me. Eventually, a neighbor came out and told him to pipe down, and he stormed off, kicking my doormat as he went. I later found out from Aunt Susan, who called to check on me, that my parents are in a full-blown panic. They don't have the money to cover Bella's rent. They're leveraged to the hilt with their own mortgage and car payments. They literally cannot afford her apartment. They spent years living above their means, relying on the fact that I was handling their biggest expense, Bella. They're trying to get Bella to move back home, but she is refusing. She says she can't live in the suburbs and that it would ruin her brand. She's currently trying to sell her designer clothes that I paid for online to make rent, but she's realizing that resale value isn't what she thought. I feel strange, a mix of guilt and relief. The guilt is programmed, I know that. It's the voice in my head saying I'm the big brother, I should fix it. But the relief? That's real. It's like taking off a backpack full of rocks that I've been wearing since I was 12. I went to the grocery store today and bought a steak, a nice ribeye. I cooked it for myself. I sat at my small table, ate my steak, and didn't think about HVAC repair or loading docks or tuition payments. I just thought about how good the steak tasted. I think I'm going to be okay. Update 2. The fire sale and the reality check. It's been 2 weeks. The dust hasn't settled. It's turned into a mudslide. Bella has officially been evicted. Or rather, she moved out in the middle of the night before the sheriff could come. She couldn't come up with the rent money. The $3,000 she thought she could get for her vintage wardrobe turned out to be about $400 at the local consignment shop. Turns out used clothes aren't a liquid asset, and people on the internet aren't willing to pay retail price for worn handbags. She had to move back in with our parents. The suburbs that would ruin her brand are now her reality. I heard the details from my cousin Jessica, who has become my spy on the inside. Apparently, the move-in was a disaster. Bella demanded the master bedroom because she needs space for her content creation, and the lighting in her old room is tragic. My dad actually considered it, trying to appease her, but my mom put her foot down because that's her sanctuary. So Bella is in her old high school room, surrounded by her luxury furniture that doesn't fit. Half of her stuff is in the garage, likely getting ruined by the humidity. The financial reality has hit my parents hard too. Without me subsidizing Bella, their budget is wrecked. They had apparently been relying on me covering Bella so they could spend their own money on maintaining their image, leasing new cars, going out to dinners, donating to showy causes. Now, they have to feed and house an adult woman who refuses to eat anything that isn't organic or prepared by a chef. Their grocery bill has tripled. I got a call from my dad's number 3 days ago. I let it go to voicemail. The message was different this time. No yelling. He sounded old, tired, defeated. "Caleb, it's Dad. Look, things are difficult here. Bella is having a hard time adjusting. Your mother is stressed. We we might have been too harsh at the dinner. We were just caught up in the moment. We miss you. We want to put this behind us. Bella is willing to apologize if you come over for Sunday dinner. We can talk about a payment plan or something less abrupt. Maybe you could just cover half? Please call me back. A payment plan. He still wants my money. He framed it as an apology, but the hook was right there. He wants me to come back and start paying again. Maybe just a little less to ease his burden. He misses his ATM, not his son. I didn't call back. Instead, I went to the bank. I opened a high-yield savings account. I took the money that would have gone to Bella's rent this month, $2,500, and I deposited it. Seeing that balance in my own name, for my own future, it was intoxicating. It was the first time in years I had savings that weren't earmarked for someone else's emergency. I also did something I've wanted to do for years. I signed up for a class. Not a trade class, but a business management course at the community college. I know HVAC inside and out, but I want to run my own company one day, not just work for someone else. I paid the tuition in cash. Bella, meanwhile, has been melting down on social media. She hasn't named me directly, probably because she knows I'll expose her again, but she's posting vague, tearful videos about toxic family members and being cut off from resources and surviving abuse. She uses a lot of buzzwords she clearly doesn't understand. The comments section, however, isn't going the way she planned. A lot of people saw my Facebook post, screenshotted and shared by my cousins. People are commenting things like, "Wait, didn't your brother pay for everything for 4 years? Get a job, LOL. Welcome to the real world. Why don't you sell that purse if you're so broke?" She ended up turning off comments on her posts. I ran into my Uncle Mike, Aunt Susan's husband, at the hardware store yesterday. I tensed up when I saw him, expecting a lecture. I braced myself for the family is everything speech. Instead, he walked up, shook my hand firmly, and pulled me into a hug. "Proud of you, son," he said. "We all saw what was happening, but we didn't know the extent of it. You stood up for yourself. About time." "Thanks, Uncle Mike," I said, feeling a lump in my throat. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice. "I know your dad. He's going to come at you again. He's going to try to charm you, then threaten you, then guilt you. Don't fold. You've got a good head on your shoulders. Keep it there." "I won't fold," I promised. He nodded. "Good. And hey, if you need a place to go for Thanksgiving this year, Susan makes a mean turkey. No admission fee required. No dress code." I almost cried right there in the plumbing aisle. It made me realize something important. I didn't lose my family. I lost the parasites. The people who actually give a darn about me, Susan, Mike, Jessica, they're still here. In fact, they're closer than before. They saw the truth, and they chose me. I'm still working my HVAC job, but the days feel shorter. I'm not dreading the warehouse shift because it doesn't exist anymore. I come home, I shower, I study for my business class, and I sleep. It's a quiet life, but it's mine. Final update, 6 months later. The collapse and the rise. It has been 6 months since the dinner of doom, as I now call it. My life is unrecognizable. I finished my first semester of business classes with an A. My savings account is growing faster than I ever thought possible. Without the Bella tax, I've saved nearly $15,000. I traded in my rattling death trap truck for a used but reliable pickup that has working air conditioning and doesn't sound like a lawnmower. I actually enjoy driving now. I also started picking up side jobs on my own. Weekend HVAC repairs for friends of friends. I'm building a client list. I registered my own LLC last week. Solid Air HVAC. It's small, just me and my truck, but it's a start. It's something I built, not something I bought for someone else. As for the golden child and her enablers, well, gravity is a cruel mistress. Bella lasted 2 months living with our parents before the explosion happened. From what I gathered, Bella refused to get a menial job. She felt retail or service work was beneath her. She spent her days recording videos in her bedroom and demanding my mom buy her expensive groceries. She treated my parents like staff in their own home. The breaking point came when Bella stole my mom's credit card. She booked a flight to Miami to network with some influencers. She charged about $3,000 to the card for flights, hotels, and VIP tables. She thought she could hide the statement or charm her way out of it. My dad found out when the bill came. For the first time in his life, he couldn't sweep it under the rug because he literally didn't have the money to pay it. The interest rates were eating them alive. There was a massive fight. The neighbors called the cops because of the screaming. My dad kicked her out. He actually did it. He told her she had to leave. He put her bags on the lawn. Bella showed up at my apartment door at 2 a.m. in the rain. She looked like a wreck. Her mascara was running. She was shivering, holding a wet duffel bag. I opened the door, but I left the chain on. I looked at her, and for a second, I saw the little sister I used to protect. Caleb, she sobbed. Please. Dad kicked me out. I have nowhere to go. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You were right. I was a brat. Please let me stay here. Just for a few days. I promise I'll be good. It was the hardest moment of my life. Seeing my little sister broken like that. The instinct to save her kicked in so hard it hurt my chest. But then I remembered the dinner. I remembered the 4 years of labor. I remembered her stealing Mom's credit card even after everything that happened. She hadn't changed. She was just desperate. If I let her in, she would never leave. She would drain me dry again. She would be the termite in the foundation of the new life I was building. I can't let you stay here, Bella, I said softly. What? But you have a couch. I'll sleep on the floor. Caleb, please. You're my brother. I can't, I repeated. You need to figure this out on your own. That's the only way you're going to learn. If I save you now, I'm just hurting you later. You hate me, she screamed, the sadness instantly turning back to rage. You want me to die on the street? You're selfish. No, I said. I want you to grow up. Here. I passed a slip of paper through the crack in the door. What is this? She snatched it. It's the address for a women's shelter downtown. They have beds. They have resources to help you find a job. It's safe. It's where people go when they need to start over. She crumpled the paper and threw it at me. I am not staying in a shelter. I am Bella freaking last name. Then you better start walking, I said, because that's the only help I'm giving. I closed the door. I sat against it and listened to her scream and pound for 20 minutes. Then, silence. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I was a monster. But I knew I wasn't. I was just a man putting up a boundary for the first time. But the next day, I found out she actually went to Aunt Susan's house. Susan took her in, but with strict rules. No phone, mandatory job search, mandatory chores, and she pays rent, even if it's small, from her wages. Susan is tough, tougher than my parents ever were. Bella is currently working as a receptionist at a dental office. It's not glamorous. She hates it. She complains to Susan every day, but she's doing it. She's paying her own phone bill. She's learning that money represents time and effort. She's learning that the world doesn't owe her a living. My parents are broken. They've aged 10 years in 6 months. They tried to reach out to me again recently, asking to meet for coffee. I agreed. We met at a neutral diner. They looked small. My dad's bluster was gone. My mom looked tired, her hair unkempt. We owe you an apology, my dad said, staring at his coffee. A real one. We failed you? My mom added, tearing up. We put everything into Bella and we ignored you. We used you. And we ruined her in the process. We created a monster. Yeah, I said. You did. Can you ever forgive us? My mom asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday, but not today. And not for a while. The trust is gone. You looked at me as a resource, not a son. We want to fix it, Dad said. Then fix yourselves, I said. Figure out why you needed her to be perfect so badly that you sacrificed me to do it. Fix your finances. And let Bella learn to stand on her own feet without interfering. Stop enabling her. They nodded. We didn't hug. I paid for my own coffee and left. It's not a fairy tale ending. We aren't one big happy family. I don't know if we ever will be. But I have my life back. I'm dating a girl named Elena. We met in my business class. She works as a manager at a bakery. She thinks my job is cool. She asks me how my day was. She insists on splitting the bill on dates. She laughs at my jokes. Last night we were sitting on my balcony. I moved to a nicer apartment. 1 bedroom, decent view. We were eating pizza and laughing about something stupid. I looked at her, looked at my truck parked below, looked at the textbook on the table. I realized I'm not a loser. I'm a survivor. And I'm finally free. Thanks for listening, Reddit. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.